everyone, so this is my review of Charmed, Season 1, Episode 8, called Bugaboo, and essentially what this episode is about is that Harry and Charity work with Mel to try and track down more information and stuff about Jada. And while it's going on, a sort of changeling demon is targeting one of the three sisters. And this was a really interesting episode that wasn't all that exciting of an episode, but it was still a really good sort of setup episode for like little bits and pieces of things to come, especially around what's going to be going on with Jada and Mel. And I really enjoyed everything with Mel and Harry and Charity in this episode, where they're explaining a bit more that there is this sort of subgroup of witches that want to use their magic for good and to be like more open about their magic and stuff. But then the sort of higher power witches and stuff don't want that to happen. And they have Jada, who is a part of this sort of subgroup of witches and really wants Mel to join them. And that was a really interesting sort of storyline of how all that played out and stuff. And then especially with what it all explained around sort of Charity's history and stuff and why she is the way she is, and then sort of what happened between Charity and Harry. And just how all that stuff sort of fit into this episode was really interesting to see. And I'm very curious to see what's going to happen going forward when they sort of figure out more information about all this, because the fact that they're going to have Mel be somewhat of like a double agent for them to try and get into this order and figure out more information about who's all involved and what Jada's doing and stuff. And I'm just very curious to see what's going to happen there going forward. And then everything with Maggie and Maisie in this episode was interesting, but also not like super important, besides just having like a big bad villain for this episode, where there's this creature going around who's somewhat of like kidnapping / killing all these different people and stuff, and they have to sort of figure out what it is and why it's doing what it's doing and stuff. And so then they have the storylines around Maisie and her sort of being overworked and trying to do all this different stuff to better her life and trying to avoid sort of her more personal side of her life. And Maggie just wanting Maisie to sort of get back out in the dating world and stuff like that. And Maggie then going and having like this internship with this dating app to try and get this big internship in Chicago for the summer. And how all that sort of stuff worked out was really interesting to see how those two sort of storylines played out, with Maggie trying to convince Maisie to use the dating app to find someone. And in doing so, she ended up causing Maisie to find this changeling demon that they're trying to stop. And it being like this weird bug demon that is trying to lay eggs to repopulate and stuff, and it needs human bodies to do so. Which was a really interesting sort of monster for this episode, especially with it playing it again with the joke of Harry being very afraid of bugs. And just how all that played out and stuff was really interesting to see. Then everything with Parker in this episode was really great, with him working to continue to try and get like some sort of sample of Maggie's DNA for his father, and him eventually choosing to use his illness as a way to try and get her DNA by having her do like this sort of bone marrow kind of swab thing to possibly see if she's a match to help him. But in doing so, she ends up giving up a part of her DNA to his father unknowingly. And I'm just very curious to see what this guy is planning on doing once he gets a DNA sample of all three of the sisters, which now the only one he has left that he needs a sample of is Mel's. So again, I'm just very curious to see sort of what they're going to do going forward because of that. And then just overall, this was a really interesting episode that wasn't all that exciting or entertaining of one, but it still was a really good episode, and I'm very curious and very excited to see what they're going to do going forward. So yeah, that's my review of Charmed, Season 1, Episode 8, called Bugaboo. So yeah, bye!